Amy, Hussein. My mother and father were born in the United States. My father was born in Minnesota, one of the states, and my mother was born in, I think, Colorado, another state. Both my parents were raised Christian, but both of them pretty much left Christianity not with any anger, but they just didn't find value in it. So as I was growing up, we didn't practice Christianity. We celebrated Christian holidays, Christmas and Easter and those things, but God was not in my life growing up. My grandparents, tried to teach us and tried to help us be Christian, and we participated with friends and everything in people's churches. So I grew up mostly Christian, but I never really felt very Christian, and many people tried to, baptize me or something like that. Finally, my grandparents, they brought me somewhere, and all of the grandkids together, we all took baptism. And at that time, I took my baptism, but I never felt that in my heart. I just was like, just for my grandparents, for them to be happy. And the only reason, because they kept telling me that to be a Christian, I have to believe that in the Trinity. And this idea I never believed, just from my own heart. I just never believed that. And so that's what always prevented me from being the Christian, or in my heart. So I was pretty much without, didn't even believe in God really until maybe my late teens and 20s. And somewhere in college time, I actually had a very it felt very important dream that God came and put something in my hands, like his heart or something like that. And it impacted me quite a lot. And a Christian friend of mine said, I think that means that you're going to be Christian. And that dream was very important to me. But I still at that point didn't think it meant to be Christian. It was something else. And but at that time, without Allah in my life, without God in my life, I don't think I was on a very good path. I didn't have any guidelines, and I had the society telling me how I should be, how I should dress, how I should talk, how I should act, what I should do, and what is acceptable outside in society was acceptable to me because that was what seems normal. Okay, I went to elementary school at Lincoln Elementary School in Torrance. I walked to school with friends. It was about 1 mile away. I walked back. I think I was pretty much a shy child, although my parents say that I wasn't, but I felt that way. Then I went to middle school, which was across the street from my home, Casimir Middle School, and then high school was North High High School. And then to college, which was the junior college, El Camino, it's local. And then to California State University in Los Angeles. And while I was in this university, I studied anthropology, which is my bachelor's degree is in anthropology. And I have a senior level standing in electrical engineering as well over there. When I was in college, I started knowing some Muslims. And I didn't know of them as Muslims so much, but after I got to know this group of friends as Muslims, and I started realizing that this group of people, they were so respectful to their parents, and they were very serious about their studies, and they had a respect for life in general, and that was a new idea to me. And this stayed in my mind while I was studying. Especially this it doesn't seem so important, but to me it was very important. I was in a physics class, studying physics. And the second law of thermodynamics, I think it's called. It's the law of entropy, which says that chaos is inevitable. The only thing to stop that is work. Work is what work is what you use to balance chaos. So over time, things will get worse and worse and worse all by themselves if you don't do anything. And working hard keeps things in order. So this idea seemed very natural to me. Yes, all my life, this is what I'm doing. I'm working hard to make my life in order. Working hard to make my life in order. When I learned about Islam, and I realized there's so much work to being a Muslim. There's the fasting. There's the praying 5 times a day with wudu. And there's the restraint. Then there's holding your tongue. There's so many aspects to Islam which take effort. Islam is too hard, I'm going to do something easier. But to me, this made sense. So later on, when I learned about Islam and all the work that I need to do, it made sense to me that Allah would require us to do work, would require us to stay in order. That's how we keep everything from getting worse. This made sense to me. Okay, so I'm better look into being Muslim then. Let's see what it is. So I started reading Quran. And realizing more and more and more that this is right. This is everything about Islam that's taught to us in the Quran makes so much sense. There's nothing confusing about it. It's very obvious. Little by little, I started doing things in my life to be a good Muslim. The first thing I started doing, I just remembered, it seems so bad or silly, but I stopped wearing shorts. That was the very first thing. I have to dress more modestly. That's the first thing I did. And just little steps after this to improve myself and my dignity and improve my relationship with God. It took me a long time. I still don't consider myself a very good Muslim. I have so much improvement to do. I pray and I fast regularly. But your personality has to really follow, Allah all the time. You have to have this taqwa all the time. And sometimes you can forget. You get involved in your entertainment or these things and you can forget. So, but anyway, so over some time, I took more and more on Islam. And his mother, my mother-in-law, we went to Bangladesh I think 1 year after we got married. And his family had not accepted, they didn't, it was not an arranged marriage. So they didn't know me, they were a little afraid who I might be, some American girl, and and rightfully so, they didn't know me, and I didn't come from a Muslim background. But my husband stood by me and he said, if you're my wife, so they will accept you, And this gave me some confidence, and when I went there, alhamdulillah, everything went very well. My in-laws, they accepted me. And they loved me very much. And I remember my mother-in-law in Bangladesh, their home is a modest home. And the room has one bed and a chair and nice dresser for the plates and all that. And she sat me on the chair and she sat on the bed and she said, La ilaha illallah, over and over. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And she made me repeat it. I didn't know what I was saying. I'm so thankful for my mother-in-law who tried to bring me to Islam and be kind and forgiving of me. She was a wonderful woman. She would try to teach me things about Islam, just little things, but she always loved me for who I was. She tried to encourage me to pray and to do things right. And all my family in Bangladesh, they've always been very loving and supportive of me and always respected me more than anyone else. My mother-in-law came to visit us maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago. She came to visit us. She'd never ever been out of Bangladesh before. And I feel selfish that she came to visit us because we never sent her for Hajj. And she always wanted to do that. But she came to visit us, and then I really got to know her very well. Many times I would pass her room in the morning and she would be sleeping on the floor on her prayer mat. All night she would pray. She kept her Quran in her bed, under her pillow, so she can read it all the time. And she was an old lady. She couldn't move very much. So this was her way of doing something in this life for Allah after she couldn't do things anymore. When I became a Muslim, my mom was a little concerned. She said, "So are you going to be Muslim?" And I said, "I think so." And she says, "Okay, you be careful. Be careful because I heard a lot of things, about them." And my father was fine, Anything to make me happy, it was fine. And as far as friends and work, it's a very open place, this area. Los Angeles, there's many religions, and we don't have an issue with different colors and different religions. So for them, it was fine. I didn't experience anything bad. After I became Muslim, which was a very slow process, I guess, I started realizing that there's so many good Muslims out there, but there's also so many of us that could be doing so much better. So many of us need to focus on education, and not just education of our sons, but education of our daughters, education of our sisters and mothers, and that education should not stop, because if we're not educated, we cannot maintain a proper society. And this is, I think, an area that Muslims should be at the leaders in the society, in the whole world, and I feel that we're not. I feel that we're behind most other faiths. And I pray that all the Muslims see that this is something that we need to really, really focus on. And not just education of, math and history and writing, but education of psychology, of parenting, of finances, of life skills. Because if you don't have a good upbringing, you don't feel satisfied, and you cannot give. You're looking and looking to feel better. You cannot feel better enough to then turn around and give to somebody else. So we need to make ourselves whole. We need to grow up in a family in which we're respected and people listen to us, so that later on we can go out in the world and help others. Well, I think that for non-Muslims learning about Islam, the most impressive thing is the fasting. Most people find fasting to be amazing. Like, how can you do that? And if you're a practicing Muslim, it's become a way of life. You don't notice that it's that hard, really. People are amazed to know my 9-year-old daughter fasts, 30 days. And this is just amazing. Some of their teachers have tried to fast even one day because of them and can't do it. Or they think they can't do it. Fasting to me has been such a blessing. I actually fast. Recently, this is a new thing of mine. I'm trying to fast, Sunnah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way he used to do, Monday and Thursday. And this to me is such a good practice. I think even if somebody is not Muslim, just to take on this practice for God's sake, they will really improve their character. But I think also I see a general problem that I hope also will be solved besides education, which is this idea that my responsibility in this world stops at my home. If my wife and my kids, my husband, they eat, their stomach is full, they went to school today, then my job is done. I don't have anything else to do. What about your neighbors? What about cleaning some trash off of your street? What about going to an elderly person's home, making sure they have food in their refrigerator, making in their home? What about going to the hospital and those children dying of cancer and read them a book? Just giving and giving and giving. When you have enough, if you have enough for yourself, so keep giving somewhere beyond your home. If everybody does this, then we won't have so many problems. But people keep thinking only about themselves and their family. And there's so many people who don't have simple things for their own family. Go and teach them how to make a living. Don't, give them money and give them food, fine. But better, teach them how to take care of themselves. And if Muslims would pay attention to this, I think we could really solve a lot of world problems. Inshallah, in our own communities and outside of our communities. We become very close to Allah, and then we don't want to be bothered with sinful behavior around us. We don't want to tolerate it. But then shutting out all those people, you are also then not allowing them access to someone who has a better path. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, be as pious as you can be as good of a Muslim as you can be as good of a person as you can be, and let someone who isn't there experience you. So they have something to see in front of them. And that's not saying, hey, don't do this, don't do that, because they're so damaged already. They cannot handle any more pain. So they just have to be loved and then accepted. And inshallah, over time, they will see, I want to be like that person that has love and joy and can love me however I am. Nobody else loved me, but they love me. Right? And I think this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. He didn't only preach to those, he didn't only love those who had everything. Right? There were people that did very bad things, but he accepted them into his circle and he taught them. He loved them and he guided them, and that's what we have to learn to do. I think there's, as far as people not opening up to Islam, there's a lot of things that happen inside of our minds and our souls in which we cannot accept anything new. Most people, they don't like to change. Change is very uncomfortable. What will people say? I've always done it this way. And in Quran it talks about this, right? That we shouldn't just do what our parents did, our grandparents did, our forefathers did. We have to think for ourselves and make sense. But most people feel too afraid to do that. If you raise your children to just do exactly what you say and not think, they will just do that their whole life. But we have to teach our children to question and get good answers so that they are satisfied. And their whole life, they won't just follow everyone. They will lead by knowing what they're doing. Many, many people, I think, even if they learn about Islam, they don't accept Islam because of this, because they're afraid to change, and they're afraid, they feel uncomfortable about that big change. In America, Muslims are a very small minority of people, and because of that, we lack organization to spread the news, to spread Islam, or the information about Islam to others. And we also struggle with having our voices be heard to all of society and the media. We have groups that do this for us, political groups and activist groups that do this, but because our voice is actually not valued, we're also not asked to do those things. So there is a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of news is about bad news. There's hardly any news station that reports good news, right? They make money by reporting bad news. So the worse they can make it, the more money they make, right? And right now it's very popular to make Islam a topic of bad news. So we will have to suffer with this, and as Muslims we should just be the person or be the people that will show everyone that those comments are false. If we start following those things that they're saying are bad about us, then we are those people. We have to just be confident in who we are and not be afraid to let that show with other people. If I'm Muslim, I'm okay with that. And I'll tell you about it if you want to know. And not try to hide because this thing happened or that thing happened. That's those people. And we have to not feel like because I have the same name, I'm a Muslim and you're a Muslim, you say you're a Muslim anyway, just because we have that in common doesn't make me equal to that person who did something bad, you know. So I'm talking like about terrorism here, where there are terrorists and they defame our name, you know, as Muslims. And how do we cope with that, especially being a minority in other countries where we're not understood? And it is a challenge. And for some people in some areas, it's an actual fear. You know, you're afraid of how your kids will be treated in school, or you're afraid of going to the supermarket and just because you look different, everybody's looking at you, just you don't feel you can actually function normally as everyone else. And because of that, people, they start hiding and they start not talking about it, but this is wrong. We should actually realize that this is the way that it's meant to be. It's just that it's not understood. When I'm praying, I'm feeling that I'm completing a very natural process. So just like as the sun goes up and sun comes down and the earth is spinning and this is just part of the way of life. So as I 5 times a day, I'm thinking about my day. This is the time, okay, this is how it is outside. I need to pray now, I need to pray now, I need to pray now. It just sort of fulfills natural order. And when I do my prayers, even that is very cyclical, right? Standing up and bending and going up. This is like the ocean, right? And I think it's a way to shut out the whole world as much as you can. We're all distracted, I'm sure, you know, when we pray. But that we keep trying that. And we keep telling Allah, I'm here for you. It's just a few minutes. I'm here just to be with you.